He gets it. The time is 3:52, and Clarion State has its second national champion in Wade Schalles. With 12,500 people, the largest crowd ever to watch an amateur wrestling meet in this country, cheering, Schalles receives his championship award, and he is overcome by the moment. Schalles also recorded the most pins in the least amount of time at the championships.
All right, folks, welcome back to BEG Wrestling. We are here with none other than Wade Schalles, folks, the all-time leader in pins. Wrestled at Clarion. Back then, it was the college division and the university division, basically the equivalent of D2 and D1 nowadays. And back then, Wade Schalles won them both, the college and the university division. Also, 1998 Sports Writer of the Year, author of 4 books, 153, 5, and 1 career record. Wade Schalles, welcome to the show. How are you, Wade?
I'm doing well. And these are little corrections that are not a big deal, but this is more information for the audience. When someone in the 60s, 70s, and most of the 80s had records, Carlton Hasselrig was 142 and 3 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Back then, when you wrestled in college and you went to the Midlands, the Southern Open, whatever, and if you ran into a non-collegian, someone who had been out of school for 2 or 3 or 4 years, that counted on your record. That changed in the 90s, where only wrestling collegians record counted. So of my 5 losses, 2 of those were to non-collegians, postgraduates. So it's 150, 53, 3 and 1 or whatever. And I'm not correcting it so much for myself, although it sounds egotistical. I'm trying to point out to the fans, to the listeners, that there's a lot of things that have changed over the years that people don't take into consideration when they're looking at the greatest of all time. And I'm certainly not one of the greatest of all time. I would be somewhat in the conversation, and back, again, in the old days when we wrestled, again, there was junior high and high school. Junior high was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So for someone to be a 3-time state champ back when I wrestled, that's the most he could win. Today, there are 4- and 5-time state champs. Well, yeah, I am a 5-time state champ. I'm bigger and better than you were at 3. Well, I only got a chance to wrestle 3. You wrestled 5. Okay, fine. And back in the days, again, in the 60s, when I was in middle school and in high school, beginning in high school, there was no Fargo. There was no, national tournaments, junior this, junior that. You never left your state. There was no national tournament. So for someone to be a 3-time national champion in high school, congratulations, but don't hold that against people from the 80s, from the 70s and behind, below that, because you never went to those tournaments. My first wrestling match was a 9th grader. First time I walked on a wrestling mat was in 9th grade.
Wow.
Today, a 9th grader may have almost 500 matches under his belt. From all the little, the Jack Rollers, the elementary nationals, and so on. It's tough.
No, and we're going to talk a lot about how things have changed in wrestling over the course of time. You say you're not an all-time great. However, you're most known for the most pins and the Wade Schalles Award that's been presented annually to the wrestler with the most pins. Recently added the Junior Schalles Award winner. I believe this year that was P.J. Duke, correct?
In 96, I think it was, when the Hodge got started, Mike Chapman and I sat down and talked about, we don't have a Heisman in wrestling. We don't have a Butkus like for football. Mm-hmm. And we don't have any of those things. So Mike and I sat down and worked out where he wanted to do the Hodge Award and name it after Danny Hodge because of his tremendous career that he had. He was 46-0, I think, with 39 pins. Percentage-wise, he's the pin king percentage-wise. I have more total number of pins, but he was so we went with the Hodge Award because he was a 3-timer OW, a pinner extraordinaire. One time it was funny when he wrestled the head coach at the University of Iowa. What was his name? I gave it to you the other day. We were talking.
Tom Brands or Zaleski?
No, way back when. He hired Dan Gable.
Oh.
And to be the assistant coach when he was the head coach. And he had Russell Hodge one time. And I did a book. I have 5 books that I've published so far. The last 2 were fiction. The first 2 were nonfiction. Of the nonfiction, I have a Norman Rockwell coffee table edition, nothing but photographs. It came out in the early 80s, and it went back to 1906, with wrestlers and who they were and pictures of them in action. And then I'd go out and find other people who knew them and say, what do you think of, Bill Cole? And then Bill Wick would talk about Bill Cole, and I'd put a quote underneath the photograph. And when I talked to the coach at Iowa, who had to wrestle Hodge in one of the national tournaments, I said, what was it like wrestling Danny Hodge? And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, for the first 2 periods, I thought I was going to die. Then in the 3rd period, I was afraid I wasn't going to die. And that pretty much sums up how tough Danny Hodge was. He was an amazing. So anyhow, Mike Chapman decided to do the Hodge, and I decided to do the Schalles. And Mike said, well, we need to do the Schalles Award for the pins. I mean, you got that, call it Schalles Award. Well, okay. So we started the Schalles and the Junior Schalles in the same year, as well as the Hodge Trophy. And since then, in the middle 90s, we've been giving that out, Mike Chapman and I, the 3 awards. And it's gone really well. And this coming season, this past season, I expanded the Schalles Award into the women's wrestling program because they've done such a tremendous job of, jumping up through Sally Roberts with Wrestle Like a Girl. Boy, she's an amazing administrator as well as a wrestler herself. She got the women's program really rocking and rolling with Wrestle Like a Girl. And today it's the fastest growing sport of all the male sports and female sports in college today.
Yes.
High school and college, wrestling's number 1 for the women, fastest growing. And so starting this past season, we have a Hodge Award, a Schalles Award winner for the women and a Junior Schalles Award winner for the high schoolers. The best pinner in high school and the best pinner in college. So I'm handing out 4 awards every year. And I believe, I don't hold me to this, I believe Mike Chapman's going to do the same for the Hodge Award for the women.
Okay. Women. Well, they're going to have to eventually, right? I mean, like you mentioned, the growth of women's wrestling.
Named something. Now, whether it's a Sarah McMahon or someone who was back in in the earlier days with the women's wrestling that did so well, or they stick with the Hodge, I don't know. But that's something to look forward to for the women because I'm so excited about what they're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned kind of your relationship with Dan Hodge, so I kind of wanted to ask you, how close were you two, and that kind of dynamic with that relationship?
I knew Danny very well. I met him for the first time right after I won my first NCAA. It was back in '72. He was with Jack Roller at the Tulsa Nationals. Jack had him in every year to hand out the awards at the end of the tournament, and the kids loved it because Danny was a legend's legend. And of course, anybody who's in wrestling has heard of Danny and taking an apple, putting it in his hand, and with his power of his grip strength, just squeezing an apple and turning it into applesauce with one hand, just crushing it. And he used to do that before the finals of the Tulsa Nationals every year. They pull Danny out and everybody get clap, and they get a big bucket. They bring a bucket, garbage barrel out and give him an apple in front of everybody. He'd hold the apple above his head and crush it into applesauce, and all the juice and applesauce would run down into the bucket. And
so that's
the crowd would go crazy. True story. Every year he did that. And Danny had that kind of unnatural, surreal power. Raised as a farmer, milking cows and chopping wood. I mean, he got grip strength. I used to tease him like, "Hey, when you get a flat tire in your tractor, what do you do, Danny?" He said, "Oh, I just pick it up with one arm that beside that's flat, and I take the nuts off with the other hand, and I turn the tire down, put a new tire on, and just tighten the nuts down, and off I go again. And that's such a far-fetched statement. But knowing Danny, it's probably true. He had that kind of power. When I met him the first time, I said, Danny, my name is Wade Schalles. He goes, I know who you are, Mr. Schalles. I said, well, I know certainly how you are. And I just had to come up and introduce myself. I wanted to meet you for all these years, just your legendary status. And I said, I offered him my hand. He shook my hand. I said, Danny, I said, I appreciate taking it easy, but I want to feel the power of your grip. Squeeze my hand, please. Well, we were up in a concourse, looking down on the mats and concrete concourse. And he squeezed his hand. I think I broke both kneecaps, dropping to my knees right there in the spot. Let go. Danny, let go. Ah, jeez.
The hand strength. Wow.
Oh, it was just amazing. So they also said his arm drag was he grabbed the guy's wrist, and then he'd put his other hand just above that, and then he'd do this and like pull the guy into him. I mean, it wasn't like a quick arm drag. It's like your arm got caught in some machinery, sucked in. He just
like a snake slowly swallowing you.
Or the next morning he'd wake up where he had a hold of your wrist, and there'd be 4 or 5 black and blue marks where the fingers were digging in to your arm. When he finally let go, the next day you had black and blue marks where he had a hold of you. Danny was, abnormal power.
Yeah.
Anyhow, and he was a better person than he was wrestler.
I mean, this is some pretty neat stories. You guys established the Hodge Trophy, the Schalles Award. I have to ask you, initially part of the Hodge Award was most pins until just recently in 2002, right before, conferences, where they actually removed and changed the Hodge criteria. So I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on that.
Well, we've talked privately about that, and I'll tell you the same thing I told you in private. I think someone was drinking or had fallen off the wagon somewhere along the line. When you talk about greatness, obviously wins are important, championship titles and so on. And the Hodge is about Danny. It would not be called the Hodge Award if Danny was 46-0 with no pins.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Hodge Award because he had 39 pins out of 46 matches. That's why you celebrate Danny Hodge.
The dominance, yeah.
And you talk about dominance. It's not 2-1. I mean, I love Lee Kemp. Wonderful. Great human being. Great athlete. Champion. But a blowout match for him was 5-3.
Mm-hmm.
That was a blowout for him. And a lot of matches were 3-2, 2-1. And but he always came out on top because he was really, really good at what he did. But I don't consider that the Hodge worthy. Mm-hmm. To have matches that most of them were decisions as opposed to majors, techs, or pins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hodge we celebrate Danny Hodge because of his pin prowess. So to take the pin away from the Hodge Trophy, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Because that is the ultimate of dominance. And when you have, every year at the NCAAs, there may be at least 3, if not 5, NCAA champions that are undefeated all season. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
What separates the 5 of them? They're all undefeated. They're all NCAA champion. What's the difference? Well, how many techs, majors, and pins did they have? To take the pin away is to take water out of soup that you're making. I mean, I don't understand what they were thinking, and I think they're completely wrong. But that's going to get me into the rules committee, and they're wrong 9 times out of 10 in everything that they do. They're not doing anything that's in the best interest of the sport, and it's crazy. And everyone's going, well, okay, that's what the rule says. Someone's got to slap them upside the head. It's really, really anti-wrestling. Anti-fan support. I mean,
well, I would say it definitely seems like a questionable and a rushed decision. And I mean, I guess, would you say that it almost diminishes the criteria of the Hodge Trophy now in a sense?
I would think so. But, okay, they got rid of the pins. So hopefully they're going to go with who had the most tech falls, which would, certainly consider to be dominance. and or if you had a tie in the text, then who had the most majors. So you can use all those as criteria, but to take the pin out of there, it should be pin, text, majors, and regular decisions. And and I don't distinguish somebody who was 28-0 versus somebody else who's 37-0. The 37-0 might have been from Clarion, as an example, where their schedule is not what Penn State's are at 28-0. You have to take into consideration the schedule and the 28 matches that one young man won versus the 37 the other young man won. Where's the difference in there? Has the 20? This year you had two outstanding athletes in, I think it was Starucci from Penn State and
Aaron Brooks,
Cornell, 4-pounder. They seeded him ninth because he was, I think he was 12-2. I think he lost 2 matches to the Lehigh kid, or 12-1, and they moved him to ninth. And I said to myself, Vito, the criteria. Where are you coming from? There's got to be, you have 5 criteria, then you have a 6th one, and it's called other. What other criteria? What other thing are we looking at here? Vito has kicked everyone's pants the last couple of years. He's been hurt most of the year, forfeited, I think, the EIWA, or maybe he lost it, I don't know. But when he wrestled the Lehigh kid, who's very, very good, he wasn't at 100%. And everybody knows he wasn't at 100%. Yeah. So on the criteria, they had 9th seed. Well, maybe he doesn't belong in 9th seed. He sure as hell doesn't belong in 9th seed. I said that in my blog before the tournament. I said he's going to win the damn thing, but the problem you have is you have these criteria. Now, the 9th seed has to wrestle the 3rd seed in the quarters. Is that right? 3rd seed. I said, now this poor guy who's 3rd seed has earned the right to be at least in the semis, given the what he's done. And now he's not going to get a chance to get that because Vito's going to thump him. And just it's not fair to those kids. Put him down at 9th. And Starucci, I think it was Starucci, was one of the 2 4-timers from Penn State. Yes. Was seated 6th because he didn't run it out of the Big Ten because he was hurt. I think it was a knee, and they wanted to have him at 100%. Cale did the right thing, set him out. But now he has 2 losses, with the Big Ten, right thing. Yeah, and didn't get a chance. May should be right inside the door. And he didn't get a chance to wrestle, show what he could do in the Big Ten. So they said, "Oh, you have 2 losses. You shouldn't be top seed." He's going for his 4th NCAA title, and you know why he forfeited? He was injured and he sat out. What, you smoking something? Or where are you coming from? Again, when you're 6th seed, 6 has the 3rd seed in the quarters, and then he has the somebody that's anyhow. It's cheating the other kids for an opportunity to be in the semis and guarantee an All-American certificate.
Yeah, it's almost like they're projecting what his injury was, or predicting what it was to a level. And if he's wrestling, they probably shouldn't be taking that into account.
That falls under the 5th category of other. It's just they want to have it all black and white because then they could say, well, we just have rules and we just followed the rules instead of people shooting at them, because they don't want the 5th rule of other, criteria, because then they have to justify why they kind of put Vito up higher or Starucci up higher. Yeah. It makes no sense whatsoever. Not logical.
Times have changed, and, back in your day, a school such as Clarion was able to compete and maintain a good program. In today's age, I'll ask you, how does a small school survive in today's wrestling age with all these NIL changes?
Small schools are trying to survive living, not survive to be able to compete with Ohio State or Oklahoma State or Oregon State. They're not even in the picture anymore. With you have the RTCs, which, in some of the major schools, they're spending $1 million a year on their RTCs. They're paying, NCAA champs and All-Americans to be in the wrestling room and work out. And, Penn State has a pretty good workout room. Besides their college kids, their RTC kids are not all that bad. You can't, every kid in the Penn State room has an All-American or national champion to roll around with. That's not going to be wrestling and give them competition in the dual meets or the tournament. They're graduates. Then you have
it's wild. Yeah.
Then you have the transfer rules. They're how you can go.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those. Yeah.
Well, it's just it's Katie bar the door. I'm not sure that it's wrong in today's society when college football coaches started getting $10 million a year on the backs of the athletes. That says there's something wrong with this picture. The athletes, what do they get? They don't even have money. They don't even give them money for a pizza on Friday night if they go out on a date. Yeah. They get a full scholarship. Yeah, good for them. But they don't get spending money. They can't fill their gas tank to drive home to see mom Sunday after a Saturday ball game. They have to use their own money or parents' money or whatever. And that used to be the way it is. But today, when you're bringing in big bucks, they took the NCAA to court and NCAA lost. I agree with the money. I know where it's going to go. It's nothing good is going to come out of it because the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And the separation is so dramatic anymore that programs are just going to be laid aside. There's probably 2 or 3 Big Ten schools that will drop wrestling in the next couple of years because they can't keep up with Ohio State or Michigan, with the amount of money that they're spending. And when you get shut out, when you're the athletic director at Purdue, and you've had 5 matches with other Big Ten schools, and you've scored a total of 9 points out of the 5 dual meets, and the athletic director is going, I'm spending 10 scholarships at $35,000 a year. That's $350,000 to score 10 points in 5 dual meets. Now I'm being overly, crazy here, and I'm not. Please, Purdue graduates, I don't need any poison pen letters. I could have picked any school.
Yeah.
You're certainly on the top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten. And you get the Appalachian States, the Cal Polys, which doesn't have wrestling anymore. The Fullertons. It's just Clarion's going to be in trouble. I mean, they can't keep up with the Joneses. Edinburgh's, Central Michigan. The mid-majors are, and now the kids, I was at Clarion. After my first NCAA title, I wouldn't have been at Clarion because I'd have got $1 million contract to go to Penn State or Oklahoma State or Iowa. I was born at the wrong time. How I'd be sitting back, sitting pretty financially. And the big boys, they're just, they're stealing, some, Northern Illinois 2 years ago had an All-American, and next thing you know, he's wrestling, I think, at Oklahoma State, somewhere like, as soon as they're an All-American, boom, here's $20,000, and I'll give you a full scholarship plus 20. Northern Illinois can't keep up with that, so they lose the one athlete that draws people in to watch Northern Illinois wrestle is just left. So why does anyone want to go watch Northern Illinois wrestle? They get shut out. At least they had one winner that just got taken, and I don't blame the athlete. I would have left Clarion. I love Coach Bub. I mean, but $1 million is $1 million.
Yeah. You want especially to a kid of that age. And it leads me to think about the bigger picture.
You got 3 years of eligibility left. That's $3 million. If you invest that right, you're setting pretty the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a job. Now, you're going to have a job. You're going to go out because you're my son, and I'm telling you this is what we're going to do. But, when things become tough, you got money backing you up at home, or, in the bank, or, up in Wall Street because of, what you did those 2 or 3 years while you were still in school. So you have the big boys are getting bigger and richer, and everybody else can't compete. And, athletic directors not going to put up with it. Not only in wrestling, in all the non-revenue sports, you just can't survive. I mean,
Wait, it makes me think about the bigger picture. And I mean, at the end of the day, the problem is there's only a handful of programs that are getting enough fans in attendance to support these programs. And I know that you have had some maybe some rule change ideas. I mean, how do we get more fans in the seats of these wrestling matches?
Well, there's obviously some rule changes that the rules committee will never consider or think about because, I come up with them, and I've been jamming it down their throat. So, they would rather see the sport die than to admit Wade might have been right. And I'll go with some of the Wade's ideas. So it's never going to happen. So I don't have any preconceived notion that that's what it is. But, if I could be and understand people when I answer these questions that you just asked, and got people out there listening. Wrestling, I think, is batting a percentage on a grade. You get a report card back at a 42%. We're not doing
42.
well. We're 30% below failing. 70% is passing in school. We just got a 42 on our tests. And the rule changes that I'm going to talk about here are going to take you up above a 70. Might be only a 78, might be an 84. But what wrestling people do all the time is, I don't like it. I think you're crazy. I don't like that. I wouldn't vote for it. Stick it in your ear. If you're going to say I don't like it, you damn well better come up with a reason why you don't like it. Saying I don't like it doesn't count if you don't say I don't like it because, and I would rather see this, let's discuss it. Then we have an intelligent person to talk to. But to hear, I don't like it, shut up, go the hell away.
Bring a
So
solution.
I'm trying to get the sport 70 or above. Now, I may be miserable and only be worth an 82. So you, smart ass, are going to point out the 18% that I didn't get. You're not batting 100. Well, I didn't try to bat 100. I'm just trying to get passing. So it is what I'm about to say has some flaws. I get it. But I guarantee you they're passing grades. They're no longer a 42.
They're better than what we have.
We don't have in the stands tells me the amount of money. Do you know there's not one college or university, including Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, that's making money? Not one. Now, Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State are close to breaking even. And I could be wrong. Kale could write me and say, no, we made $243,000 last year. Yeah, but you spent $2,400,000. Okay, fine. But the percentage of return on investment is not really good at Penn State if you're making money at all, because they're spending a lot too. I mean, they're handing out contracts, for the kids to stay, and they want to stay because Kale's amazing. But there's money.
But they're getting paid. Yeah.
So now the coaches won't vote for this. See, the coaches are the foxes, and they have the keys to the hen house. They don't want anything at all to change, because change means change. And Kale might think, well, I'm number one. I've been number one. I want to be number one. It looks like I'm going to be number one. If I make some changes here, they're pretty radical. Maybe I'm all of a sudden getting knocked down to number 2 or number 3 or number 4. Well, why would I vote for that? I know I'm going to be number 1 next year. So the coaches are the foxes. You can't ask them their opinion. You have to have retirees that are coaches that have an open mind. And I wouldn't even want them on the board. I'd want marketers and promotional guys who say this makes sense. You look at football or basketball. What are they doing that we're not doing? KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Basketball, no matter what it is, I throw the ball up. It either goes in the hoop or doesn't go in the hoop. Easy for everybody to understand. It goes in, it's a 2-pointer. If it's outside the circle, the arc, it's 3 points. If you're on the foul line, it's 1. I mean, duh. I only have those 1, 2, and 3. I can understand this. And I'm supposed to put it in the basket. The other guy's trying to keep me from getting it in the basket. Duh. Football. You cross the line, you get 6 points. You don't cross the line, you don't get any points. You kick the ball through the uprights, you get 3. I mean, duh. And this team is trying to get across that line, and the other team's trying to stop them. Simple. Wrestling, my God. It's like we have 1,243 pages of rules. And, 10 pages contradict the other 10. We're out to lunch. Keep it simple, stupid. I mean,
that's a saying in corporate America. Keep it simple, stupid.
1910 to 1920, in the 1920s, they had 2 rules. Whoever had the most riding time won the match, or whoever pinned won the match. Riding time or pin, that's it. You want to hang on an ankle, You can. You want to play the edge? You can.
Yeah. Well, that's what Cale Sanderson said when I asked him. He was an advocate of less rules, not more.
Yeah, less. I mean, and that's crazy, but think about it. If you take them down and you're riding them, you're getting riding time. So you actually demonstrate a skill. You took him down. Well, we have to give 3 points for that. You don't have to give anything for it. Just start the riding time clock. The other guy gets on top. Whoever, at the end of 15 minutes, with 15-minute matches, whoever had the most riding time got his hand raised. Or the pin ended the match. And there was a period, I don't know whether it was 1, 2, or 3 years, if I pinned you in 2 minutes and 43 seconds, they'd put 2 minutes and 43 seconds back on the clock, and we continued to wrestle. And if you could pin me quicker than I pinned you, you won.
Wow. I mean, that's a different take. Yeah.
And if I would be in a wrestling ring, how about, he's stalling, he's hanging on to an ankle, he's picking up, he's not trying to pin the guy. When we have our coaches go crazy, referees go crazy here trying to figure out who's stalling, who's not stalling. The guy in the bottom is really good at going, the referee, I can't get out. He's hanging on. He's begging for a stalling call, and a lot of times he gets it because he's a really good actor.
That is part of it.
In the wrestling room, or in the wrestling room, if you had a 45, and you walk over to this kid, and you say, you got 10 seconds to get off the bottom, or I'm pulling the trigger. Yeah, coach. 10 seconds later, boom, blood, brain matter all over the mat, and everybody in the wrestling room is going, you go over to the next kid. You got 10 seconds to get off the bottom. Guess what? He gets off the bottom in 5 seconds. What's the difference? He's motivated. Now, is that a crazy analogy? Absolutely. If you want to get off the bottom, you can get off the bottom. Whether a guy's riding legs, he's got a figure 4 on my body, which is now illegal, has been illegal since, I think, the 80s. Timmy Flynn, the coach of West Virginia now, and used to old coach at Edinburgh, he was really good at body figure 4 and ride the hell out of you. He'd beat you to death. And then, well, that's not fair. I can't get out. Well, then don't take it down, dummy. We always make a rule. Someone's complaining about something. Well, we got to have a rule to address that. And then the coaches go, well, we have to have a counter rule to figure out how we're going to counter that rule that they just put in. And it's one rule on top, layered on top of another, on top of another. It's craziness. So anyhow, back to the original question. What would I do if I was king for a day? And I could change one rule. King for a day. And I'm allowed to change one rule. This is my rule. And folks, I don't want to hear, I don't like it. You can stick it up your nose. Okay? It will make a huge difference in many reasons. A point earned is a point scored. You win 5-2, your team gets 5 points, the other team gets 2 points. That's the way every sport is. You don't hear, ladies and gentlemen, LeBron James tonight scored 92 points, and for his tremendous effort, that's a new NBA record, we're going to give his team 15 points. Huh?
That's a valid point.
That's what we do in wrestling.
I cannot think of another sport that
you hit a grand slam. The 3 runs you drove in, you don't get credit for. The team doesn't get credit for. Just your run of circling the base, you get one. Your team gets 1 run, 1 point for hitting the grand slam. Huh?
Okay, so what kind of impact do you think that would have? I mean, you talked about just kind of the urgency and, the motivation to wrestle.
It gives everybody credit for effort. It's 8-4, and there's a minute to go, and I'm on the bottom, and I got 4. Why am I trying to get out? I've got to take him down 3 more times in a minute, which I didn't do in the first 7 minutes of the match, to win. I'm lost. So I've given up. So people in the stands are going, or going to the bathroom, going to get a Coke, because there's nothing going to happen in the next minute and a half. But if every point that you score counts for your team, your coach is threatening you with death. Get off the bottom. I need 1 more point. 1 reversal. Come on. And you damn well better produce, because the coach, every point counts. In the wrestling room, every day, coaches are panicking and screaming, I need points, more points, let's go. It's not hang on to an edge and win 2-1. It's not. It's not. You have to score points. And now, what do we do with a pin? Some people are saying, what do we do? And my answer to this is where it's a little shaky on my rule change. People go, I don't like that. If I win 20-5 and the match terminates because I have a tech fall and 15, that's a 15-point difference. So you have to give 15 points for the pin. If I'm winning 5-2 and I pin the guy, I get 20 points for my team. He gets 2. It was 5-2 plus my 15 for pinning. There's going to be a lot of people bridging and never giving up on the bottom. And there's going to be a lot of people looking for a pin because coach is going to be threatening them with a life-changing, altering something if they're not trying to pin somebody. There's going to be assholes and elbows flying on that mat all over the place. They're not going to be protecting the lead because the coach is going to kill them. And if you're undefeated and you won 10 matches, you're 10-0, and you've won all your matches by 1 or 2 points, I'm going to bench you. I need points. I don't need a 2-1.
That definitely would devalue. Yeah, I mean, those wrestlers are just.
Well, I'm 10-0. I don't care. If you can't score points, I don't need you. I don't get extra opponents because you won 2-1. They get 1 point. I get 2 points. I need points. Well, that's not fair because a Clarion with Simpson and Schalles could have 2 pins and lost the other 8 matches by a 3 or 4 point difference, and Clarion would beat Penn State. That's not fair. Well, one exceptional quarterback on a high school team with 10 other average athletes are going to be in the playoffs and maybe win the states. One 6'11" high school basketball player surrounded by 4 mediocre basketball players will beat a team with 4 really good basketball players and an average center because of the big guy.
Yeah.
How many games have LeBron James won for L.A.? A lot. Why? Because it's LeBron James. He's putting up 40, 50, 70 points a game. And now when you have that, when you talk about NBA, what's the first, if I say, name me a great basketball player, you talk to anybody on the street, they're going to say LeBron James. He's the hero. They look up, they fill the LA Coliseum to watch LeBron James play.
He's
at Clarion,
superstar.
I packed the gym at Clarion. Now, Bob and the team had a great team, but they came to see Wade. And I'm not saying that because I'm Wade and I'm bragging or not. I was electric. I was exciting. I was doing crazy shit. People loved it, and I was going for the pin all the time. And that's why they came.
Proven so.
In the stands, make it exciting. 2-1 is not exciting.
Yeah. No, that would definitely give wrestlers a reason to wrestle every minute of every match, which in turn would make the fans watch every minute of every match as opposed to being able to tune out when you know a guy's going to ride someone out or something. But
now on the pin for 15 points, okay, give it 10. Give it 8. I don't care. You can argue that. But the concept is a point earned is a point scored.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, you could say, well, Wade, that's not true. You're talking about all these big-time sports. What about soccer? 2-1, 1-0. 2-0 is a blowout in soccer. So it's not about the points. No, it's about the action. In order to get the pin, you're getting after it. In order to get 15 points, you're getting after it. In soccer, you have 11. I think it's 11 players on each side. You have 22 players that are sprinting the entire game. They're not jogging; they're sprinting and fighting for the ball. So it's not the score that the fans like; it's the action.
It's a constant sense of urgency. Yeah, you just need a reason to keep wrestling at all times. Yeah,
to the athletes by the coaches. The coaches sit back, and now Clarion is no way ever going to schedule Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, because the blowout will be so bad. 128-7. The athletic director is going to say, "Why am I doing this?" And the wrestling coach is going to be so embarrassed. See, we keep the score low so we can have Clarion theoretically wrestle in Ohio State or Penn State if they would wrestle them, and and that's what blowouts are all about. They don't belong together. You need to have a mid-major. Football has one AA in football. The Appalachian States, they don't play the Clarion and the Clemsons and NC State. Well, they might play one game that way, get extra money. But for the most part, they have their own national championship. We need to have in wrestling, if we're going to save our sport, and our sport, we don't have 10 years. We don't have 7 years. We got to make some changes now because the money is going crazy, and athletic directors see the writing on the wall, and they cannot keep up with the Joneses. They're going to have to start dropping sports, and it's going to be the non-revenue sports that get dropped. And you can say, well, they make, oh no, wait, they won't do that. They'll just cut back on the expenditure on sport. No, they won't. If you're the athletic director, and I'm going to take Clarion as an example, I believe they have about 6 scholarships, something like that. And I'm going to say to the coach, I'm taking all scholarships. I can't afford it anymore. Okay, so is the wrestling coach happy with that? No, he's upset. And so are all the alumni at Clarion. So every year, every month, every week, the athletic director is going to catch crap from some alumni, some wrestler, some coach about how could you do that to wrestling. Look at the history of the Clarion wrestling. So he's constantly having to defend his position, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like being fired on. So he has a choice of two: cutting back on the scholarships and getting fired on every day, every week, every month, every year. By how could you do that? Or he could just drop the sport and everybody fire on him for 6 months or 3 months, and then they forget about it because the sport's no longer there. So do you pull the Band-Aids off quick or one hair at a time? The athletic director is going to pull it off quick, get rid of it. It's so much less painful for them. So programs are going to go. And the rules committee going, oh, okay, I'm just going to keep here and doing what we're doing. We haven't thought about marketing or promotions or how do we please the fan. We're not pleasing the fan. The only people that show up outside of Iowa and Penn State and hopefully now Oklahoma State with the big hire, David Taylor, what a great hire.
It better be, yeah.
And they cranked it up, and I wish them the best. I can't wait. But, other than well, look at Penn State. In diving in the Olympics, you have 8, I think it's 8, might be 6 judges, and someone off and splash in the water, and they all hold up the cards 1 through 10, and they eliminate the highest score and they get rid of the lowest score. They drop the high and low, and then they average the other 4 or other 6. I don't know how many it is, and that's what the score they come up with. They get rid of the one that might be, well, that was my it was my cousin's son. I gave him a higher score. Yeah. They try to, well, I don't like that son of a gun, the coach over here, and so I'm not going to score high. So they get rid of the high and low to get rid of that possible bias. And in wrestling, we have that same type of bias that we have to concern ourselves with.
That is the thing in corporate America, or they always say take someone's
look at
best.
Iowa. You've got to get rid of. You cannot say look at Penn State, look at Iowa. They're the exception versus the rule.
Yeah.
Look at Clarion, Edinburgh, Hofstra. I can name names that schools that don't even exist. How many schools talk about money? What conference do you think is the richest conference in America in all sports? Richest conference, Southeastern Conference. Big Ten would be there too, but it's either them or the Southeastern Conference. How many schools in the Southeastern Conference are
money.
13? How many of them have wrestling? 1, Missouri. 13 of the 14 don't have wrestling, and they have all the money in the world. And what football coach doesn't want to have a wrestler, a heavyweight wrestler, all 2-time state champ from Missouri, playing football for Alabama? Yeah. Football players do really well in the football field. I mean, wrestlers. So tell me why we don't have wrestling. No one cares about wrestling. We have our problem. We have more injuries in wrestling than any other sport. More injuries in wrestling than football, basketball, baseball, track and field, swimming and diving, tennis. Why? Because they consider, unfortunately, skin ailments as injuries. Herpes, and that's an injury. That's to me, that's not an injury. That's a skin ailment. An injury is a twisted ankle. The knee surgery. But anyhow, So the athletic director, I don't need wrestling. That they're number one in my injury list. What sport has the lowest academic average of all the men's sports in the NCAA?
Oh, don't tell me it's wrestling. Really?
Yeah, it's wrestling. We're the stupidest. We're the most injury prone. And we are really good at Saturday night after a Friday match night dual meet, having a bunch of wrestlers sitting on some bar stool and some football player coming in and trying to push the 125-pounder off the bar stool because he wants to sit down. And guess what? The fight's on. And the football coach, the football player has two black eyes, and the wrestler's completely okay. Now the football coach is going ape crap over this, that his football starting guard just got beat up by the 125-pound wrestler. Wrestling is, I don't know what the numbers are, but we're in with the dean's office enough every now and then for little disagreements down at the local bar or whatever, and then we have academics, we have injuries, and we're bringing in $12 and they're spending $44,000. The athletic director goes, why do I need these guys? The AD has to go to the alumni meetings and go, we have our athletes are graduating at 12% higher than the general student population. We have this, we're doing that. And he wants to be able to brag about, and we're winning in football, we were in the bowl game, and basketball was in the final 16. He keeps his job by saying nice things about his program. And if the wrestlers are pulling the academic average down, the injuries down, fights on campus or whatever, or having social issues, whatever the social issues are, from, maybe smoking in the off season or whatever, football players can get away with that because they bring the bucks in. Well, because we get dropped. Football's doing the same thing. Pay attention, coach. They don't care about you. You're not bringing in the bucks. They'll bury the football rape issue, because it's football. And they're not going to bury it because it's wrestling.
Well, that's just how the real world works, right? The more value you bring in, the more you can get away with.
But it seems like the rules committee doesn't understand that, and the coaches are going, oh, okay, you have to have, when I was Clemson wrestling coaching, I had big black plastic garbage bags, and I had printed on the side of the bags Clemson wrestling, big tiger paw, and on Mondays I made them run about 5 miles before practice on Mondays, for Wednesdays or Friday matches. And I make them run down through the center of town with these bags, and they saw anything on the ground, old beer can, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, potato chip bag. They had to stop and pick it up and keep running, And all the owners of the stores downtown went, "Oh, that's the wrestlers. What a nice thing to do. They're going to run anyhow. What the hell? They got to bend down." So I'm tiring them out a little bit more. Yeah. But the goodwill we had, you get the goodwill bucket over here, and you have the bad one over here, and it's a balance scale with the athletic director. You damn well better have more positive than you have negative, where the AD's going, why do we need wrestling? In November, we'd have a blood meal drive. American Red Cross would come in that wrestling would sponsor, and I'd have posters made up. The wrestlers want your blood down at Derby Athletic Center this Saturday from noon till 5. Wrestlers want your blood. And we posted all over campus. Everybody would see what we were doing. It was one afternoon where the athlete wrestlers were down there handing out orange juice and sandwiches to those that gave them the blood, But again, the good bucket versus the bad bucket, the things you got to do in order to keep your program alive. Now, there's a lot of coaches that are doing things like that are just doing a great job. But there are more. And when the coaches, are only getting paid $35,000 at, Campbell University, I don't know what they're getting. I just made that up. They need to do other things to put food on the table. That qualifies for food stamps. So they don't have time to do a bloodmobile drive or the baggies. Sometimes it's really just very difficult to be the coach that you want to be and to do the right things, and to have athletes. You want to have an All-American. So you're gonna take that sub 2.0 kid who's been arrested 3 times and give him a chance. Say, I'm doing the right thing for this young man. He's really cleaned up his act. He's doing the right thing. So these lesser schools are taking these marginal student athletes that have a background that may not be perfect, wanted to give him another try. No, you don't want to give him another try. You want to wrestle him. You want to have an All-American there. And you're saying, I want to give the poor kid another try. That sounds really good, but really deep down, all you care about is All-American certificate over here. If you can hold him, keep him out of jail and out of problems. So you have a tendency to take, to keep up with the Joneses, so you don't get shut out against Penn State. You got to at least have one marginal student athlete, at Podunk University. So
there's certainly a level of politics involved. Yeah, I mean,
now another thing is if you went to a restaurant and you ordered 12 oysters and they served you 9. And then when you got the bill at the end of the evening, they charged you for 12. Would you be upset?
Yeah.
Yeah. When people go to a match in college or high school, they promise you, was it 13 or 14 weight classes? Different states have 13, some have 14. Well, anyhow, I'll say 13. If you go to a Scholastic match and they promise you 13 matches and you pay your $10 to get a ticket to come in and you only have 11 matches out of the 13, do you feel cheated? Yeah, I paid for 13. Well, that's what happens when you forfeit 2 weight classes. Well, I don't have anybody in that weight class. I don't care if you have anybody in those weight classes. That's a forfeit. You're cheating the fans. You're spitting in their face. And you wonder why they don't come back next week? Are you an idiot? It's the same way you wouldn't go back to that restaurant.
Valid point. Yeah.
If they charge you for 12 and they serve you 9. We're not thinking. So how do we? Well, I just can't find them. Okay, here's the answer to this. Athletes are allowed to wrestle 2 weight classes in a dual meet, but only 3 times a year. You could walk out at 141 and then win that match and stay out there for 149. So if you have a forfeit, coach, you can move the weight class below that up 1. Now, if you're forfeiting 125, there's not a lightweight below that. I know. Okay, so I'm only fixing 9 out of 10 weight classes, so I got a 90 on this. So don't yell at me because I didn't get 100. But the idea is, I want LeBron James. We don't have too many LeBron Jameses in wrestling. Why? We don't let them score any more points.
Yeah, their value is limited.
If you let him go out and he beats an NCAA champ at 133 and goes out and beats an NCAA runner-up at 141, he's going to be on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. Not the way we have it set up now. We keep from having gods in wrestling.
Our superstars,
and we have a lot of people who could be gods.
I mean, we had 2 4-timers this year at Penn State. Yeah, and why? And I agree. We need more bigger personalities in wrestling. I think that would be a good way to do it. Why not?
I would believe that, I wrestled 50 to 77. I wrestled 58 at Slippery Rock my senior year in a dual meet on Wednesday night. Friday, 2 days later, I weighed in at 165, wrestling 177, and I had to hit Hitchcock in the finals at 177, who went on the next week to win the college division and was outstanding wrestler, went on the next week to win the university division, was outstanding wrestler, and he was runner-up in the Pennsylvania Conference. He got pinned. I pinned him. There are Wade Schalles out there. There are people that can go up 2 or 3 weight classes and still win. If you think I'm crazy, coach, in your own wrestling room, when you have an NCAA champ at 33, you put him out on the mat all the time against the 49-pounder in the practice room. He never gets hurt. So what are you complaining about? What are you bitching about?
Yeah.
Well, worried about what?
Well, wait, is that fair? That's not necessarily fair, is it?
Fair to who?
I don't know. Another wrestler's opportunity. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
No, yeah, I get the fair. Thank you. I know where you're going with that. That's why I said you can only do that 3 times a year, because if you have a 41-pounder who's a pretty good wrestler, but he's not the NCAA champ at 33 on your lineup, if you keep moving him up 33 to 41, he's going to quit or transfer because you don't need him anymore. You keep on moving the 33-pounder up. You can only go up 3 times, so you can only displace that 41-pounder 3 times. So now, strategy-wise, oh my God, coaches are going crazy now. Cale Sanderson, he's at 157, and he's down by 5 points to Ohio State. And do I move my 57-pounder up to 65 because my 65-pounder is only average Now, I'm not talking about anybody this year or last year. I'm just saying, average. So if you're a 65-pound varsity guy, I didn't say you were average. And I don't need a poison penalty there either. But Cale's going, well, I should move my 57-pounder up to 65 because I got to stop this momentum. I got to win this dual meet. But wait a minute. I got Iowa next week, then I got Oklahoma State, and then I got Michigan. And I can only use this guy 3 times. Ooh, what am I going to do? And now the crowd's going, put him out there, move him up, we got to have it. And Cale's, well, what did I do? And the other guys up in their stands going, no, you got to keep him for the Iowa and Michigan and Oklahoma State match. There's strategy and there's arguments and there's fans and they're going crazy on what the coach should do or not do. Oh, it's wonderful for the fans. And that's what we don't give a shit about our fans. We don't care about them. We don't even open, if you're only going to get less than 500 people in a dual meet, the athletic director won't even open up the concession stand because you got to pay concession people and you don't have enough money coming in to pay the referee, more or less the concession fan people. So I can't wait to go to watch the Clarion match or I keep on using Clarion. I'm sorry, Clarion. It comes in my head because I wrestled there. Podunk University. Why am I going there to pay $10 to watch 8 matches instead of 10 matches? To have only one men's bathroom open instead of 2 because you have to have janitors clean both bathrooms. I have to walk extra far to go to the bathroom, at halftime, and I can't go get a Coke and some popcorn because you won't open the stand. Why am I here? I mean, if you're not selling beer, popcorn, and hot dogs at a baseball game, you're not going to have very many people there. I mean, they're there to watch some home runs. Yeah, I get it, but they also want to have a hot dog. Hot dogs, get your hot dogs. Hey, you get a Coke over there to throwing a bag.
Well, it's a whole experience. Yeah, it's a whole experience. Needs to be an experience. We're kind of lacking that experience in wrestling.
Promotions.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean,
rules don't make sense. And I would eliminate all triangulars, quadrangulars, 8-team tournaments, 16-team tournaments, illegal. Dual meets only until the conference. Oh, wait, that's crazy. Why is it crazy? You have less injuries. That's a good thing. And so what if a kid is 12-0 or 15-0 as opposed to 38-0? What's the difference? He's undefeated. And but
so you're saying the days of back in high school when we had to go spend an entire weekend for a wrestling tournament.
Oh, my God.
You're telling me that shouldn't happen.
Okay, my daughter's playing soccer. Game's at noon. I go to the game with my daughter at 2 o'clock. We're at the Dairy Queen, celebrating her victory or her hard work.
Yeah.
2 hours. Mom and Dad don't have the time today. Both of them have jobs. Some of them have second jobs. They're trying to keep food on the table and do all the things, clean the house, mow the lawn. They don't have time to go to a triangular or quadrangular all-day tournament, 8-team tournament, and sit on the stands all day to watch Johnny wrestle 3 times and 2 times get his butt kicked. They don't do it. We purposely say, we don't want fans. We hate you. We don't like you. Please do not come the way we treat them. And they listen to us, and they don't come. The top 20 teams in America, starting with Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, Michigan, Ohio State, yada, yada. Okay, if you take the average of all 20 teams and all the fans that come to all 20 of those matches all season long, you have an average out to 2,500 fans per match. 2,500 people out of all those matches. Well, that's not true. Look at Penn State. Got to eliminate the high and the low. Penn State's doing a hell of a job. But, they're only drawing, 8,000 because, they're in Rec Hall. Most of their dual meets, they're not in
Bryce Jordan.
What's the one called?
Bryce Jordan Center.
Bryce Jordan Center.
Yep.
But, you can't keep up with the Joneses at 2,500, and then when you have tournaments and tries and quads, you have far less than that. People are just not coming. They got too many things to do. They want to come see energy, excitement, cheering. An athlete go out 2 times and win 2 matches in a row, showing that he's tougher than any other SOB we got in the sport. We talk about wrestling. Wrestlers are tougher. No, football players, they come in, they cry in our wrestling room. They can't stay with us. But we can only go 7 minutes because we're so weak. Are you kidding me? Coach, you make your kids wrestle back to back to back to back to back in a wrestling room every day.
That's what practice
nonstop,
is.
35, 40, 50 minutes nonstop. And during Gable's days, I think he made them wrestle 3 hours nonstop a day because he was crazy. And I say that with the most respect, you know? So, but in a big match, he can't go more than 7 minutes. Oh my God. You know, then the doctors go, oh, he can't do more than 7. If a basketball player can run up and down the court for 2 hours nonstop, and we think they're a bunch of pussies, and we can only go
great
7.
Point. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Come on. Yeah, I mean, they're in the best shape of their lives. Now, wait, I have to ask you, say someone crazy like me, I want to actually get started and make some of these changes. Where would I even start? Who would I go to even do something like that?
Well, that's the $20 $5 million question. Everyone would tell you, the athletic director will tell you, well, if you're the assistant coach, talk to your head coach, see if he agrees with you. And if he agrees, I want him to take it to the assistant athletic director. And if he can get it past her or him, and then you're going to take it up to the associate athletic director. And if you get past him, then I'll talk to you, and we'll see what we can do. And now the athletic director doesn't want to make any changes at all because they just go away. You're wrestling. I don't want. I get divorced too often now as the athletic director. I don't want to put up with wrestling. I mean, you bring no money in, and you're a pain in the ass. I have to go up and bail your kids out of jail on Sunday from Saturday night fight, and you're academically, all these problems. I don't have time for this. I'm not making any changes. So he tells the assistant athletic director, whatever he's asking for, tell him no. Or the associate, whatever he's asking, tell him no. So eventually, it never gets up to the athletic director to make a decision. Now, that's how it works in most athletic directors. Now, could Cale walk into the AD right away and make a case for anything? Yeah, absolutely. Because Cale's a class act. And the athletic director knows he's not bringing in marginal student athletes. And he's a God-fearing Christian man who brings that into the wrestling room, and he has quality young men in that wrestling room. But for the most part, that doesn't work. You've got to go to the top down. When Binghamton dropped wrestling, this was back in 2001, I think it was 2001, University of New York, Sonny Binghamton. They dropped wrestling, and we tried to get it back. We couldn't. Wrestling. We made talk to the athletic director, assistant athletic director, and no one was changing their mind. And unfortunately for America, that's when we had the tunnels to towers problem, and the trade centers went down in 2001. And fortunately for us, Denny Hastert was the Speaker of the House of the United States during those years, and the governor of New York called Denny and said, "Denny, I need money to rebuild New York, and we took it on the chin up here, and I need help. Can you take it to the House of Representatives?" And Denny said, "Yeah, I'll be glad to do that for you." This is, yeah, absolutely, count me in. And the governor says, "Is there anything I can do for you, Denny?" And Denny thought for a moment. He goes, "Yeah, you can reestablish wrestling at Binghamton." What? Yeah, Sonny Binghamton. They dropped wrestling this year. Bring it back for me. You got it. Hung up. 5 minutes later, the governor had called the president of Binghamton. The president of Binghamton called the athletic director, and 5 minutes later, they had the wrestling program back. You go to the top and work your way down. You don't go to the bottom and work your way up. You'll never get anything done that way. We've got to go to the top. And what's the top? People like Bob Bowlesby, who's the commissioner of Southeastern Conference, who was the athletic director, who, when Gable was at Iowa, Bob Bowlesby was the athletic director, and they worked really well together, and Bob knows wrestling inside and out. And he has the inside track to talk to anybody at the NCAA he wants to, and he has their attention. If he say, we need to do this, I have a feeling that they would do it because of who Bob is and the quality man and the way he thinks. I think that would be a way to start it. But we need to have him, then have behind him the top 10 financial guys in America. The people who are supporting in Penn State, the Iowa, the Michigan, who's giving, without naming names, but the multimillionaires and the billionaires, that represent, that help USA Wrestling, whether it be Titan Mercury sponsor, or somebody who's pretty big in bitcoins out of New York City, or there's just a lot of people out there, and you get 10 of those people to come together in, say, Chicago on one Saturday, one time, donate their time on a Saturday to sit down and say, we got a problem in wrestling. How do we fix it? And, I'd like to be there just to, to get it started, but then get the hell out of the way, because I'm good, but I'm not great. But I'm a hell of a lot better than what we got in wrestling right now. I know marketing, I know promotion, and I know what we need to do. But I need the people that have clout. When they clear their throat, the wrestling coach at Ohio State quakes in his boot. And when he says, I think we need to have this, it gets passed. Same at Oklahoma State, same at Iowa or Penn State. That these guys say, okay, they come out with a manifesto. We have these new 10 rule changes or 5 rule changes or whatever it is. And we're going to put in X amount of dollars ourselves into a fund. And we're going to hire a marketing director out of New York City, who knows marketing, from the majors, might be vice president at Coca-Cola, but they know marketing and they know promotions. And they go to work and they start making suggestions that are not really suggestions. They are, this is what we're doing. And they drop it on the wrestling coaches, whether they like it or not. Because if I can get, double, triple the income coming into Clarion's, Appalachia States, of what they have right now, then, hey, a wrestling coach, instead of you taking home $56,000, you're going to take home $156,000 or $112,000.
Yeah, it'd be better for everyone.
Would that be something you'd want? I don't like the rules. If you don't want $112,000 versus $56,000, take it home and talk to your wife, where I have a feeling she'll explain it to you in a term that you'll understand. So shut up and go with it. It can't get any worse than it is right now. We only have a couple years, and we need to have like a mid-major, like 3 scholarships or less for the Clarions, the Appalachia States, the Purdue's. If you can't keep up with the Iowa States and the Iowas and the Penn State, the Oklahoma States, Michigans, if you can't keep up with them, you shouldn't be wrestling them. It's like saying Clarion's football team should be playing Ohio State during the year.
Yeah.
Huh? What? After the game, you don't have enough stretchers and ambulances to take the kids to the hospital. I mean, it's going to be 156-0, and you're going to have 5 guys out.
Doesn't college football kind of do that like once or twice a year? Ohio State will play like Youngstown State, but I think that's all revenue based for those smaller schools, though.
That's 1AA. That's not Clarion.
Yeah. But I get your point.
It's that's common sense. You go football, basketball. North Carolina doesn't play Clarion basketball. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And we shouldn't be wrestling them. But that goes against it. Well, we've always used to do that. Well, we've always used to do a lot of things. But today, when I wrestled, Penn State would not wrestle Clarion. We asked them all 5 years I was at Clarion for a dual meet, and they refused to have us because they knew we'd beat them. But today, back then, we had the same number of scholarships they had. We had the same budget they had for the most part. Now they had more kids on campus, more than we did, but they wouldn't. Today, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so maybe let's get some business people involved, and because wrestling does seem a little insulated, but
they don't understand.
How much wrestling do you watch nowadays?
I don't go. I didn't go to last year or the year before that. I don't watch it on TV. I have no interest. It's boring because it's 5-2, and they were hanging on at the edge and playing down, blocking at the edge, taking half shots, faking like they're trying to do something when they're stalling their butt off, and they know it. I know it. The coach knows it. 94% of the people in the stands know it, but the referee just goes, "Oh, okay." There's nothing exciting about it. Where's my Babe Ruth? Where's my, Joe Montana's? Where's my Muhammad Ali?
Who was your favorite wrestler? Who of all time, maybe, or recently?
Oh, recently, hands down, Bo Nickel.
Bo Nickel, yeah.
Yeah, because he would come after you. If I had another son, I would think Bo Nickel would be my son. For no other reason other than he wrestled all very, very much like I did. The
Yeah.
Splatos, elevators. He would come at it from all. He didn't do anything.
So we need more Bo Nichols.
Oh, yeah. Ben Askren falls in that category. Gene Mills. I mean, there's you could probably name 10 people that you go, wow. If every team had Gene Mills and Wade Schalles and Bo Nichols and Ben Askren type people in there, even Gable Stevenson. Stevenson, Carlton Hasselrig, Lou Bannock in the heavyweights. They got after it. People would, as much as there wasn't much excitement, but people would come watch Chris Taylor. Why? Because he was 400 plus pounds, and just a freak of size, and just a great human being, and quite an athlete. He was an athlete. He could sprint. For being as heavy as he was, but they would come just to see this big guy wrestle. He was a marketing person you market your program around. We need more of that. We have those athletes. We brag about how tough we are, but then again, all our rules say we're not that tough. We're a bunch of wimps. And
we have some young kids coming up here, Wade, that have that kind of wrestling style. I'll say that. So they're not all hope is lost, but I do want to ask you a little bit about your personal wrestling career, because there's a legendary story, and I have to ask you if it's true, that before a match for a maybe your 100th pin, you placed an X on the mat before the match, and as legend has it, you then went out and pinned that guy on that X. Is that true?
No.
No.
Yeah, it is.
It is true.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened there.
I was president of my fraternity, and we used to, in the springtime, we'd have a walkathon for cerebral palsy. And we'd raise, $2,000, $3,000. People would pledge 5 cents a mile for whoever, all the fraternity brothers, they would walk on a Saturday, for 5, 10, 15, 20 miles, and for a good cause. And then we were in a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks before our cerebral palsy, and it was it was at the end of the wrestling season. It was the last dual meet of the year. We had Russell Clarion, had Russell Lock Haven in our last dual meet, and it was going to be my last dual meet ever because I didn't get a chance to go to the NCAAs my senior year. I wrestled, my freshman, sophomore, junior year, and they said I was ineligible my senior year, and I got cheated. I should have easily been a 3-timer. I got to walk through the 3rd time, but anyhow. One of the fraternity brothers said, "Hey, let's put an X on the mat, and if you pin the guy, we can get people to pledge money, and we don't have to walk on a walkathon. We'll just put the weight of the world on your shoulders. We'll put an X on the mat, and if you can pin the guy on the X, we'll get people to, because it's so crazy, they'll pledge you. Well, if you can pin them on an X, I'll give you $5. I'll give you $1 or whatever.
Yeah.
All the students in campus. So I went, no, we're not doing that. And then I started thinking that week, I went, well, I could probably get away with that or do it. And I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, well, Muhammad Ali used to say down in 4, and then in the 4th round, knock the guy out. He did that regularly. He would name what round he was going to knock the guy out in. Yeah. And then there was Babe Ruth. He would get up the bat, and he'd take the bat, and he'd point to right center or left field where he was going to knock the ball out of the park at that location. Mm-hmm. So not only did he hit a home run, but he said where he was going to hit the ball out of the park at. That's the same as an X on the mat. And Ali, what round you were going to put him down in. So there's a history that things like this have been done in athletics. Yeah, why not? So the trainer at Clarion, before the match, and they put the mats out, they washed it, taped them down. He went out with a little piece of white athletic tape, just a little, maybe 1.5 inches long, and he made a little X on the mat, where if you didn't know if no one called your attention that, hey, look at the X on the mat, you didn't notice it was out there. It was near the edge, the out of bounds, and you just didn't notice it. So they wrestled, that night, and matches. As the match is going on, getting closer to my weight class, the buzz in the auditorium, it was a packed house at Clarion, started, getting louder and louder, and it was, the excitement level. And I went out to wrestle, and Coach Bub didn't know a thing about it, and and that would have not happened if Bub knew about that in advance. And as it turned out, I got a cradle on the young man, and I was on the other side. I mean, I had to be 20, 25 feet away from that X, and I had to drag him the whole way across the mat.
Oh my
push,
goodness.
push. And as I got closer to the X, the crowd got louder and louder. And then Bub was going, "What's going on?" And then Craig Turnbull, whispered in his ear and pointed out on the mat. Bub stood up right away, walked to the edge of the mat, looked and closed his eyes, shook his head down, and sat down. I didn't see any of that. They told me that's what he did afterwards. I didn't know it. And I got the kid up on his shoulders right on top of that X, where I kind of slid him onto the X, and white athletic tape doesn't stick on the mat really well. So as I slid him across the mat on his shoulders, the tape rolled up and stuck to the back of his neck. So when the referee called the pin, he got up. The athletic tape was still stuck on the back of his neck.
My goodness.
So he walked off the mat, and that was that. And then Bub walked on the mat. I went, uh-oh. And the crowd was going crazy, and I'm going, oh, I'm going to get blistered here. And Bub grabbed me, and he said, "Stay here." I went, okay. And then the announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time anybody in the history of wrestling in America on the collegiate level reached the 100 pin plateau." So this was Wade's 100th pin, and I got a standing ovation for that.
Wow.
And while that was going, now Bub, he never said the word SHIT or DAMN. I mean, nothing like, never ever came out of his mouth. So he's standing there. He goes, "What the hell is that X doing on the mat?" Okay, there's a 4-letter word, hell. He never said that. I'm going, oh, he's serious. And I looked over and I said, "X? What X, Coach? I don't see an X. You see an X?" He said, "The one that's right over." And he looked, it was gone because it was stuck on the guy's back.
Wow.
I said, "There's no X on the mat, Coach."
Wow.
That's a figment of imagination,
Yeah.
No,
What a story. So it's a true story. Not only is it true, but it was for cerebral palsy, to raise money for cerebral palsy and to save all your classmates from having to, run or walk?
Walkathon, yeah.
Wow. So win, and just what a bold move. I mean, that's the kind of story they make legends.
There was a loss in there too, unfortunately, for the kid from Lock Haven, which I apologized to him afterwards because I felt really bad. I mean, you don't make fun of you go out, kick somebody's butt, and do the best you can. But when you go beyond that, you're embarrassing somebody, and that was certainly embarrassing for him. That stepped over the line. And, then the longer I sat there at the bench, the more upset I was at myself because it sounded good at the moment, and I wasn't old enough to sit down and figure it out. But I had to go over and apologize, and he accepted my apology, and we're very good friends today, and have been.
Yeah.
But it was that. That's the story.
Would you say that was your most memorable match of all time?
No. That wasn't memorable at all. I mean, it was just another match.
What would you say is?
Well, winning the high school state finals in high school. I started wrestling in 9th grade and wrestled in junior high. I was 6-2. Yeah. In 10th grade, I was 12-0 with 12 pins on JV.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't make varsity until I was a junior, and I had a really good wrestler ahead of me my sophomore year. He was the best kid on the team, happened to be in my weight class. That's why I was JV. But I was 12-0 with 12 pins. And I thought I was 12 pins, But anyhow, my senior year, I was fortunate, unfortunate to wrestle a young man who was going for his 3rd state title from Pennsylvania, who had never lost a match in his entire life. He was multiple state champions in elementary and middle school, youth and in junior high. In my high school, my town didn't go to any tournaments like that. We had no elementary wrestling, and we had junior high, and I didn't come out to 9th grade. But so my senior year, I had to go. I moved up a weight class. I wrestled 40. I could wrestle 45, but the second best kid on our team was a 45 pounder. And if I went to 45, I bumped him out of the lineup, and we needed him. And as it turned out, all season long, we got beat 39-7. My 5 and his 3 or whatever, and we'd lose all our matches. And, he and I would win all our matches basically. So I did it for the team to wrestle at 54. Then I started thinking, I'm going to run into Chapman here in the state final. Oh, this is not good, because he's going for his 3rd title, and he was God's gift to wrestling at the time. They weren't giving out OWs at that year, outstanding wrestlers in those years, but had they been OW, he ran through it his sophomore and junior year. He'd have been a 2-time OW as well in PA.
Yeah.
And so I wrestled. I was 22-0 going into the finals with 21 pins, and I only didn't pin.
Not too shabby.
In the semifinals because Chapman pinned in the semifinals in I think 58 seconds, and he came out and sat down on the mat when I was wrestling, and watched me wrestle. That intimidated me, and oh dear, Ooh. And so I didn't want to show him anything, so I didn't do it much in my semifinal. I won 6-1 or 6-2, I think it was, but I wasn't doing anything because I didn't want to show him anything because I had my own little unique style, and so that I didn't pin on that match. But then in the finals, I had him, and he was going for his 3rd title, and I was fortunate enough in the 3rd period to put him on his back, and he didn't get off his back. So I pinned in the finals, and they didn't have OW back then, or I wouldn't have won the outstanding wrestler. So I was 23-0 with 22 pins. I still have the highest pin percentage, in Pennsylvania in the high school states. And I would have had 23-0, I'm sure of it. But, that's the way the cookie crumbled. I was so concerned about Chapman, which, I had a reason to be. He was a tremendous wrestler and great human being. Anyhow, so that was my biggest match. And I analogize that to, anyone who's a multimillionaire probably filed for bankruptcy at least once, if not twice, somewhere along the line, until he figured out how do you become a multimillionaire. And, you do the same thing, once you get the formula, you do the same formula over and over again. Once you got your first million, to get your 5th million or 10th million, not a big deal. It's the first million that's tough with, because you don't know what it takes and what kind of dedication you have to learn a lot of things that first million. And in wrestling, you have to have the first big match, that validates your effort, your work, your skill set, the style that you wrestle. Once you have that big match, then all you're doing after that is working just as hard, if not harder, and repeating the process to have that get that 5th million and the 10th $1 million, because the first million is the key. And for me, the state high school was the key to validating me when I look in the mirror, say, I am special. Yeah. I can make this happen in college. I can make this happen internationally. So, probably the biggest match for me was that. And the second biggest match was probably, Shorty Hitchcock in my last college match.
Wade?
Yeah.
We're going in the pool.
Are you going to go in the pool? Okay, go ahead.
Does Mama have a swimsuit?
I'll be right down.
Okay.
Taking care of grandbabies.
It's hot out.
But the other big one was wrestling Hitchcock for my last match. It's funny, the last high school match and last college match were my 2 big ones. And after that, winning the world championships, on the university level, having all pins there and being an outstanding wrestler, and winning Tbilisi and having 5 pins out of 6 and pinning 3 world champions in Tbilisi. That's a Russian tournament in the 70s, were far tougher than the Worlds or Olympics, because the Russians would have 25 to 35 Russians in your weight class, and back then that was they were the cat's meow in wrestling. Whereas in Olympics or Worlds, they were only allowed to take 1 kid. So you could be runner up in the World's Championships and only have to lose to the Russian. But in Tbilisi, you had to beat a lot of Russians, and I had 3 world champions there, and pinned all 3 of them, and won the Tbilisi. He was an outstanding wrestler. So, but
that's a pretty neat story.
The Worlds and the Tbilisi were not as big to me as the last match in college, Hitchcock, and the last match in high school with Chapman, because those 2 were the validation that you are good.
Just keep who you are.
You got the formula.
Yeah. Well, Wade, it reminds me, and I have to tell you a short, quick story. in a way that my family almost has a personal connection to you in a sense. So, we've talked a lot about your wrestling, but you've also been a clinician and taught at a lot of wrestling camps. And way back when, you actually taught at a clinic in Manassas, Virginia, with my old gym teacher, and he was our wrestling coach, Dave Bowersox. And I wanted to ask you if you actually remember, you actually wrestled him back at the Carlisle Open. And he told me that you might remember him.
For the first 2 periods, he was afraid he was going to die, and the third period, afraid he wasn't.
Yeah. Well, he said he knew that the only way he was going to beat you was to basically knock you unconscious. So he must have went out swinging and tried to headbutt you and everything. But you have obviously ended up winning. But he was proud of the fact that I don't think that you pinned him. And then I think when he originally contacted you to help him out at this Manassas clinic, you must have said, "Oh, the guy who was a grizzly bear." So, but anyway, he's coaching my brother wrestling in high school, and my brother goes on and wins a state championship, and I think it was 2007 or 2008. And in this semifinal match, he beat a kid named Nate Johnson, who was undefeated up to that point, and he beat him. He was losing in the match and pulled a standing Sevron to end up pinning him, to go on and then eventually win in the finals. In his post-match interview, he says, "Hey, I learned that Sevron from Coach Bowersox." And I talked to Coach Bowersox, who then said he learned it from you at that clinic in Manassas, Virginia. Also said you were undoubtedly the greatest clinician that he has ever come across. So, do you happen to remember that?
Well, I don't remember that specifically because I've only done maybe 3 or 4 clinics in my lifetime.
Wow. So that's pretty incredible. If you've only done a handful, and that happened to be one of them. Yeah.
No, I was being facetious there. I've done thousands of clinics. I don't even remember what I said at half of them anymore. But I
talk about how much. I mean, did you enjoy wrestling or coaching almost more in your career?
Well, I liked everything about the sport. I wasn't the best coach. I wasn't the best clinician. I wasn't the best wrestler. I wasn't the best referee. I wasn't the best writer. But I was in the top 5 in all those categories. So, in my opinion, anyhow. So overall of what I was able to accomplish in the sport of wrestling, I'm very proud of being able to do all those things. And as a clinician, I'll hold my own with anybody because I make it fun. I mean, we talk about different styles, and I try to blend styles with body types. What wrestling coaches don't do when they teach us is stand up. Okay, everybody in the room is going to go doing stand up, so he blows whistle. We do 10, 15, 20 stand-ups. Well, there's different body types. If you're 5'6" in the NBA, I don't care how big of thighs you have or how hard I train you to jump, you're never going to be a center, not at 5'6". Mm-hmm. Okay, if you are 300 pounds, you're not going to be a free safety on the football team. I don't care how much you think you are. You're not going to keep up with those little speedsters, not at 300 pounds. So there are size that go with different positions in football, basketball, and certainly in wrestling as well. Tall kids have 3 things that the short kids don't have. The tall kids have more reach than the short kids. They have more leverage than the short kids, and they have more flexibility than the short kids. However, on the other side of the coin, the short guys have 3 things that the tall guys don't have. Short guys are always faster than their opponent, always faster, always stronger than their opponent. And when you combine strength and speed, you come up with power. They have more power than the tall kids. Mm-hmm. So each of the tall kids have certain things they're good at, and there are different holds and different techniques that lend itself to tall, skinny kids. Whereas there's also techniques that are really good for short kids. Yeah. Short kids can stand up. They only have that far to go to do a stand up. They're short. They're powerful. They're explosive. Boom! They're on their feet, cutting through and facing a guy. They always get out. The tall kid looks like trying to stand up, looks like a newborn fawn trying to stand up. They're wobbly. They get halfway up, they get chopped back down. And the coach goes, "Yo, must do it. You have to stand up harder, Jimmy. Next time, harder. You try again, harder, and you get chopped down again." Coach, you're not doing the right thing for your kids. Divide your team, tall and short. It might be 35% tall, 65 short, or 50-50. Doesn't matter. Divide them. The short guy has to do short sit-outs, push-backs, cut-throughs. Tall, I mean, that's the tall guy. Short guy, boom, boom, boom. They'll explode up out of the bottom. Top guy, if you're on top, short guys, they have the arm and power strength to chop and tight waist. They're going to get a chop and tight waist on everybody. The tall kid can't chop anybody. They chop on this little short powerful bicep arm of their opponent, and they can't chop. They can't ride the guy. I couldn't hold him down, Coach. You have to try harder. No, Coach, you don't have to try harder. You have to teach them different. The tall guy has to spiral ride. Use their legs and the body to spiral the guy down, or throw legs on him. Okay, short guys don't put legs on. Short guys are a disadvantage with legs. It's not that you can't ride legs. You have to work really hard to learn legs when you're short. So short guys don't do legs. Tall guys do legs. Short guys do chops and stand-ups. Tall guys do spiral rides and short sit-outs and pushbacks or high turn-ins, to come out. So you teach different skills to different people. And you have to, and this is what I teach at clinics. I try to tell, Jimmy, what are you doing? Standing up. What are you doing standing up for? You're skinny and you're weak. And it's because you have that, you're also slow. You'll never get up. Stop. It doesn't mean you're not going to win. You're just not going to be the center on the basketball team at 5'6". Coaches don't understand that. Yeah. So once I explain it, then all the coaches go, well, that makes sense. I've been doing it all wrong. So they think I'm a great clinician. And I am in many ways. Because I make it fun. I make it knowledgeable. I make them see wrestling in a completely different way. My high school coach told me to pick up an ankle when I'm on top and ride the guy. I tried and I tried. I said, Coach, I'm not doing it. I get up on it. I spiral, get up on top of the guy's head, which was unheard of back then. And I'd ride the hell out of somebody. I'd make him eat mat, And the coach says, you have to get back on an ankle. I said, Coach, look at this chest. Look at these arms. Look at his thighs. I can't pick my arms cannot compete against his thighs are this big. I can't do it. I mean, I'll tough it out, but I'm going to lose. Let me get up on his head where he breathes, where he has blood going to the brain. I'll cut that off. I'll shut him down. I want to get up on his head where I'm fighting the strength of his arms, not his thighs and his buttocks. South of the belly button is 90% of the power that the human has. North of the belly button, it's kind of weak. I want to be up there, not down. So I used to, argue with the coach all the time.
Custom coaching. Yeah, I mean, they do it in every other sport. You coach to the athlete's strengths.
What happened was that, now this story is not true, but I like to tell it. Back in 1842, there was no wrestling in America, and there was this football coach in New England said, I think I want to have a wrestling team. I've heard something about wrestling out of catch-as-catch-can out of England. We used to have a wrestling team. He calls the football coach and he goes, Coach, I got $500. I want you to start a wrestling team. The football coach is like, I don't know anything about wrestling. I just know football. He said, you'll be fine. Tackle, right? We'll call that a double leg. You already got the first move in wrestling, a double leg. It's a football tackle. I'll give you $500. Well, okay, for the money, I'll do it. So he has 10 kids, and he teaches these 10 kids some wrestling, and he doesn't know what he's doing. There's no book out published that he can read. There's no videotape to look at. There's no other coaches to talk to. What the hell is he makes it up. He makes up everything about wrestling. Those 10 wrestlers go out and they start coaching, and they coach 10 each. Next thing you know, we have 100 wrestlers wrestling. Those 100 go out and they coach 10 each. So we're 1,000. So where we are today is all the wrestling we have in all 50 states, and thousands of kids, tens of thousands of kids wrestling. And when you say something about any technique, where'd you learn that at? I think that technique's not very good. What do you mean? My coach taught me that. It's still not very good. Are you saying my coach knew what he's doing? No, I didn't say that. I just said this is not very good technique. And you say, well, my coach taught me that, so that's why I'm going to do it. I said, okay. Let me ask you a question. Where did he learn it? Well, his coach taught it to him. Okay, fine. Where did that coach learn it? Well, his coach taught him. And you go back far enough, it all goes back to the football coach in 1842 that didn't have a clue what the hell he was doing and made it all up. And we've been doing the same thing over and over and over again for 10s, 20, 30, 50, hundreds of years, doing the same thing and never questioning whether it's right or wrong. Because we always do it because that's what our coach taught us to do, and we respect our coach. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the great things that our sport teaches respect. We respect our coach, and we do what he tells us to do. But he was wrong. And because his coach was wrong, and that coach was wrong, and that coach was wrong. You have to reevaluate what we're doing today, and we're not doing that really well. Now, most of the kids are doing that today. If you saw videos of me and they said I was great and crazy and unique and all that, if you take my videos, which aren't any videos back then, and you play them today, you go, he's nothing special. He's just like, Bo Nickel or RBY or, Sarucci or, any of them. He's doing the same thing they're doing. But back in the, in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, that stuff was not being done. So by comparison, that was so unique. If you would take a Corvette today and move it back, put it on the road in 1972, people would be going to the hospital from neck pains, from head spinning around, going, "What was that?" Yeah. Because the cars they had back then were today namby-pamby in relation to how neat looking the new Corvettes are. I was a Corvette back in the 70s, a Corvette of today back in the 70s. I was stood out so much. Whereas if you saw me today, I'm just another Corvette on another road among all the other Corvettes. I'm just average. But a lot of what you're seeing in wrestling today, a lot of it started with me, of changing, saying, that's not the way you wrestle. And then for the first 5-8 years, it was called garbage wrestling. Schalles, he's not going to win anything on college level. That's garbage. He'll never make it. And I started winning in college. They say, internationally, it's garbage wrestling. He'll never do that internationally. Then I started winning there. And after a while, they said, well, he's funky. So they changed the word garbage to funky. And after a year or two, I said, funky. Why don't I get rid of the E part and say it's funk? So I tried to make it special. That's funk wrestling. That's a style of wrestling. And, and all of a sudden it gained momentum as being a completely unique, new, accepted style of wrestling. Today you talk about that's funk. It's accepted. And funk was garbage wrestling that I turned to funky, and I turned to funk in my terminology that you're seeing today. And so kind of I'm the father of funk because I'm the one that came up with the word funk to start with.
Father of the New Age wrestling. That's why they have the Schalles Award, folks. You're an award-winning author. Your talents seem just absolutely endless here. Wade, I feel like we could talk for quite a few more hours. But is there any kind of and folks, we have not. I don't think we've heard the last of Wade Schalles, and certainly has changed the sport for the better. And Wade, this has been incredible. Your final thoughts and kind of where wrestling's going, maybe.
Well, I have had. I'm going to say this, and it's bragging. This is bragging. I'll just say it outright. But it's to make a point that I have been successful. Bragging, call it what you want. But I see where we're going and what we need to do. And if we don't make some changes real quick, I started the National Dual Meet Championships in college, which was called the Virginia Duels. Now, John Graham and I sat down and worked it out. Now, John is the father of the Scholastic Duels and the National Dual Meets, but I'm the one that pushed him into making it happen when I was at Old Dominion. He said, "Wait, we can't call this, the Virginia Duels." I said, "Call it the National Championship." He said, "We don't have Oklahoma State here. Penn State's not here." I said, "I don't care. Start at the top, work your way down, not at the bottom up." Remember that we talked about that earlier today. We're going to call it the National Champion, and Minnesota won it that year. I said, "You watch. Within 6 weeks, see what happens." Within 6 weeks, Penn State called, Oklahoma State called, Ohio State called, Michigan's called, Iowa called. They all wanted in the Virginia Duels. Why? Because we advertised as Minnesota was the National Dual Meet Champions. And all the alumni and all those other schools went crazy and said to the coaches, "Get your butt over the Virginia Duels. We're wrestling that next year." And that was the start of it. I was the first college that had mat lamp. I built a mat lamp and turned all the lights out in the gym and put it over top. And that turned out to be pretty decent going. I was the first coach that started half times. And boy, I caught shit from a lot of coaches that, what are you doing starting halfway through? Oh, I stopped and I bring in a barbershop quartet for 10 minutes that would play and entertain. Or I'd have a junior gymnastic, cute little girls and guys, 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade, go out and demonstrate flips and flops and during halftime. And all the parents would show up and the grandparents would show up to watch their grandchildren, but they were paying people sitting in the stands to watch wrestling.
Yeah. It's a fan experience.
I was the first guy that started half times. I've done a lot in wrestling. I was, I refereed the NCAA championships. We did too. I was one of the very first wrestlers, and I was the first NCAA champion to referee the NCAA championships. No, I can't take that back. There were a couple back in the 50s that were doing it. That was a wrong statement. Before you yell at me, but I did do the NCAAs. I'm in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. I'm in the Pennsylvania Wrestling Hall of Fame. I've written 5 books. Last 2 have been nonfiction. I'm sorry, fiction. Books were.
And you have some new ones coming out.
And I have another one, the 3rd one coming out in the series. It's Jacob's Cradle. All 5-star reviews in Amazon. Charlotte's Gaff is a follow-up to Jacob's Cradle. All 5-star reviews. And the next one's going to be Avora's Wrath. It won't be out till the 1st of next year. And I do a lot of writing. And am I big time? New York Times bestseller? Hell no. But for a wrestler, I'm doing pretty good. And
I'd say so. Author of the year, 1998, or sports writer of the year.
Sports writer of the year for the United States. Yeah. No, that was just in wrestling. It was the sports writer of the year for wrestling, and they usually don't give. You have to really, really be good to get a second one. So I really haven't tried. And on my blog, I have the largest blog out there. I have over 3 million hits on my blog. No one else in wrestling has that.
Wow.
So these, and I'm saying this. Yeah, it sounds good. Wade's bragging his ass off. Well, in a way, yes, but I'm trying to make a point. Whatever I do, whatever I say, usually is followed up with something good that comes back in wrestling. So my rule changes, and I have more. And if you want to read my at 7, I have 7 rule changes.
Yep.
If you want to read them, it's just simple WadeSchalles.com. My first name, my last name.com, WadeSchalles.com. That's my blog site, and I have them all listed there. And you can read a lot of things. Maybe a blowhard. I may be, off the wall sometimes, but off the wall has been pretty good for Wade.
A proven track record of success. Yeah. So you might want to listen. To him, folks. WadeSchalles.com.
Got it. All right. There you be.
But Wade, thank you so much. We're gonna have to do it again because we could talk for hours, but I greatly appreciate it. And hey, enjoy that sun out there, and sounds like some swimming going on.
Yep, I got 3 grandbabies here. They're enjoying the water, so I gotta go put my swimsuit on and get after it.
There you go. Teach them how to wrestle. There we go. Right. Thank you, Wade.
Have a good day. Thank you.